About 200,000 chickens have to be killed in Jefferson County, Wisconsin. It comes after a dangerous bird flu strain hits the state. The USDA confirms the strain H5N2 hit a commercial chicken farm. Workers were seen outside the farm suiting up. Now the agency stresses no human infections have been detected. The birds will be killed so none enter the food supply. The focus now is in making sure the strain does not spread.
We imposed a state quarantine to try to prevent any spread of the virus through movement of birds or movement of products. So identify the premises in the area and set up a surveillance zone, and we'll be testing later this week poultry premises in the area. Some of the commercial flocks within that larger control area are already doing their own testing, and we'll be doing testing to monitor to see if the virus is present elsewhere.
Now, this is the first time this virus has hit a commercial chicken farm in the region. Well, California's ongoing crippling drought continues to take its toll on farmers and ranchers all across the state. And now the lack of a snowpack and the added water restrictions will have a direct impact on the cattle industry. Reporter Lee Martinez shows us why the cost of keeping herds fed may be too much for California ranchers.
It's calf weigh-in and ultrasound testing at this Valley Ranch.
What we're looking at is for fat within the muscle.
The calves are getting high marks now, but ranchers fear the drought could change their development.
Body either adjusts or compensates for it, but the drought will have an effect on it depending on the type of forage they're fed.
At Mark Beck's ranch, the cows came home early. They spend most of the winter and spring in the foothills, but the grass up in the mountains is disappearing.
The cattle are eating it faster than it's growing, so we've got to save feed for next year to go back to.
Beck's San Joaquin County ranch is irrigated. It has pre-1914 water rights to pump from the river, and his ranch has its own wells. Beck says he's fortunate to grow his own hay. Ranchers south of Modesto are looking to slaughter older cattle.
People that don't have irrigated pasture to come to, you can't buy $300 hay or $250 hay to feed a cow all summer long.
Beck says cattlemen compete for water with lucrative almond orchards and vineyards. This year, ranchers can expect less cattle feed.
The people who have the ground and can grow the feed are the ones that will keep the cows.
Beck says beef prices will stay high this year because of a reduction in California cows. A bright spot in the cattle industry is in the Midwest, where cows are fed with corn feed instead of hay, and corn prices are down.
And they can go to the Midwest and they can be fed fairly reasonably, and that helps the situation.
Many farmers will be reporting to their irrigation districts how much water they will be using and if they plan to plant fewer crops this year around May 1st. Beck says the amount of alfalfa and grass on the market will determine who stays in the cattle industry. Time now for Stewardship Wednesday, staying ahead of the curve in animal care. Beef producers have enjoyed a nearly ideal spring for calving. Now, that means less disease and death loss. There have been fewer calls to the veterinarian and less use of medicine.
I don't believe we'll have a large number of calf scours outbreaks from now on, although you can never be sure about those things. And to tie in a little bit, there are times when we might use an antibiotic to treat calf scours. I would differentiate it to say this, though, that we don't necessarily use it to treat the infection in the gut. We're not always sure whether it's viral or bacterial or both. But actually what we try and do when we use antibiotics in the case of calf scours is to treat that calf so that that bacteria that we believe is in the gut doesn't go into its system and cause what we call a systemic infection. That's really why we would use antibiotics. Calves don't get sick and actually even die from just that infection. They get into an extreme dehydration status and an electrolyte imbalance, and really that's what usually ends up making calves very ill or actually dying from the disease. So to correct those, we talk about oral fluids, maybe even intravenous fluids with the right electrolytes in the fluid therapy.
All right, coming up right after the break, we'll take a full look at your weather forecast.